10. Vietnam's Sacred Giant Turtle. According to Vietnamese legend, the great Ho Hoan Kiem Lake of Hanoi, the centerpiece of the beautiful city, was once home to a giant turtle and a magic sword. Legend says that in the 15th century, a man named Li Loi was given a sword with the power to drive out the occupying Ming army of China. He was crowned emperor, then was boating out on the lake one day when he came across a giant golden turtle. The sacred turtle took the magic sword back from him. The emperor renamed the lake Ho Hoan Kiem, meaning the Lake of the Returned Sword. Nobody ever saw the blade again, and the turtle descended back into the depths of the lake. Even though this is just a myth, the great turtle of the lake has a kind of legendary status in Vietnam, similar to the Loch Ness Monster of Scotland. For centuries, people have claimed to witness a turtle-like monster poking its head up past the surface, and there were enormous turtles that once lived in the lake. In 1967, a giant turtle 550 pounds, 250 kilograms, and 7 feet 2 meters long climbed onto the shores of the lake and died. It was so exciting and so shocking that the Vietnamese put it in a glass box and stored it in the temple. Some suggest that it was the mythical golden turtle, over 500 years old. And then in 1998, a photographer captured another giant turtle on camera, but nobody ever found that one. In 2000, local Vietnamese biologist Ha Dinh Duc suggested that turtles could belong to a brand new species living in the lake. But 3 years after that, scientists provided evidence that these mysterious turtles are Yangtze giant softshell turtles, a species identified way back in 1873. Today, we call the species Raphetus swinhoiae. It's the rarest freshwater turtle in the world. 9. Hammerhead flatworms. Scientists have identified a new and bizarre invasive species in Texas. An extremely strange worm that can grow to be a foot, 0.3 meters long. This worm is disgusting. It's predatory and it feasts on earthworms. It's called the hammerhead flatworm, and the Texas Invasive Species Institute says they're currently ravaging the Houston area by eating earthworms that are needed to maintain healthy soil. Scientists have spotted these invasive and rather ugly worms as far north as Missouri. They're called hammerhead worms because they look like the worm versions of hammerhead sharks. Some also call them hammerhead slugs. Someone accidentally introduced them into North America in the early 1900s with plant imports from Southeast Asia. They thrive in humid climates, which is why they've spread so ferociously through the American South. They're also dangerous to humans. Everything about these worms is just terrible. They eat our beloved earthworms and secrete horrible neurotoxins that can irritate human skin and make pets sick. They can also transmit deadly parasites to people. Scientists say that if you see one of these worms out in the wild, do not touch it with your bare hands. Pick it up with something else, put it in a bag, and then fill that bag with salt or vinegar and freeze it to kill it. Scientists say that whatever you do, never cut the worm in half, because it can form new heads. If you cut the worm in half, you've only helped to create 2 more hammerhead worms. 8. The tiny Catalina island shrew. Conservationists recently spotted an elusive creature that's been off the radar for 15 years. This rare creature is rarely seen. It only grows about 4 inches 10 centimeters long, and it's been listed as a species of special concern since 1996. Researchers at the Catalina Island Conservancy in California found one in 2019 for the first time since 2004. The creature is a Catalina island shrew, not as interesting as an invasive worm or a legendary golden turtle, but definitely more rare. It's kind of like a mouse with a long snout, and finding this thing was harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Researchers, including biologist Emily Hamblin, tried and failed for years just to get a single picture of it. During 1,500 nights, they took over 200,000 photos using camera traps. Researchers thought the shrew had gone extinct, and then bam, they caught it on video. They had to put up 7 remote camera traps at 28 different locations on the island, and they had these active between February and May 2020 before finally capturing an image of it. The shrew, even though it needs to eat every few hours, usually twice its body weight each day, is insanely sneaky. But now that the shrew's been spotted yet again, the Catalina Island Conservancy is going through with efforts to encourage its survival. Once they figure out how many of these creatures there are, they'll work on a plan to increase their numbers and stop them from vanishing into extinction. 7. The first real millipede. Just about 200 feet underground in Australia, scientists recently came across the very first millipede. It's an invertebrate that has the most legs of any animal on Earth, an astounding 1,306. It has no eyes. It scurries around on its hundreds of legs deep underground, and it's the creepiest thing you've never seen. Researchers named the terrifying creature MILLIPEDE Persephone after the Greek goddess and queen of Hades. Despite having the most legs of any animal on this planet, the millipede is less than 4 inches 10 centimeters long. The previous record holder for having the most legs was a different millipede discovered in the Silicon Valley of California with 750 legs. What's kind of funny is that this newest insect is now the only real millipede in the world. Because millipede translates to 1,000 feet in Latin, most people think all millipedes have at least 1,000 legs, but this is the only one that does, plus 306. Even more shocking is that scientists say this may not be the limit for the most legs. Study leader Paul Marek says that when a millipede is born, it has only 8 legs. But as they shed their skin and grow new body segments, they keep growing more and more legs. There's the possibility that an older species of this millipede could have even more legs, maybe even 2,000. 6. A spider invasion. The Joro spider is about the size of your palm. It's mostly yellow, it's horrible to look at, and scientists say it might take over the entire eastern coast of the United States in the next few years. Just like the hammerhead flatworm, the Joro spider is an invasive species. It comes from Asia and was first spotted in Georgia in 2013. Nobody knows how it made it across the ocean, but experts guess it had something to do with shipping containers. And in the past 10 years since the species was first spotted, it's been found in other parts of the southeast. Andy Davis, a researcher at the Odum School of Ecology, says people are going to need to learn to live with them. He says even if you take all the webs down that sprout up around your house, they're just gonna come back. This is bad news for people in the southeast who already have plenty of annoying insects and scary animals to deal with. The Joro spider is a relative of the golden spider, also called the banana spider. The scariest thing about this newest one is its size. It's huge and might give some people a heart attack just by seeing it. The only good news is that it's venomous. Oh, no, that's not good news. The good news is that even though it's venomous, its fangs aren't long enough to penetrate human skin. 5. Living dinosaur. Dan Lallier, a Canadian from the province of Alberta, was fishing on the Fraser River in 2022 when he reeled in the catch of a lifetime. A sturgeon weighing over 600 pounds bit the end of his line and pulled Dan into the fight of the century. The monstrous fish, described as a living dinosaur, could be upwards of 100 years old. It was quite the battle, with the enormous fish thrashing in the water and Dan struggling with his friend to get the thing onto their boat. When the fight was over, Dan measured the sturgeon at 10.5 feet, 3.2 meters long. Dan's friend, who helped with the catch, Yves Bisson, has been a fishing guide for over 20 years, and he's caught over 22,000 sturgeons in his life. This was the second biggest he'd ever caught. The reason these amazing fish are called living dinosaurs is that they're considered a prehistoric species. It's the strongest freshwater fish in the world, and it's been swimming in lakes and rivers of the world for over 120 million years. It was even around before the Tyrannosaurus Rex. 4. Mystery creature. A mysterious animal has baffled experts in Pennsylvania. A woman named Christina Eath in 2022, near her home in Adams County, discovered this creature. She didn't know what in the world it was, but the creature was clearly in dire straits. It was cold and shivering, weak and thin, and so she took it to her local animal shelter. But the veterinarians at Wildlife Works didn't know what they were dealing with. They thought it was a dog or a coyote, but couldn't determine its species. Then the animal escaped. It chewed through a window screen and ran off into the wilderness. Wildlife rehabilitator Morgan Barron arrived the morning of the escape to find the animal's cage destroyed, the room trashed, the window forced open, and a hole eaten in the screen. It had exploded, tore the place apart, and then got out of there. It vanished just as mysteriously as it had come, without the veterinarians ever figuring out if it was a dog, a coyote, or some kind of unidentified wild canid species. 3. Tardigrades and snail slime. Tardigrades are tiny organisms, itty-bitty things with 8 legs that are almost invisible without a microscope. Some call them moss piglets, and others call them water bears. And while these almost microscopic beings only measure 0.002 inches, they live all over the planet anywhere with liquid water. They can live in soggy clumps of lichen, in the moist moss growing on rocks, and they're almost invincible. Tardigrades can survive extreme temperatures, being crushed by immense pressure, exposure to direct ultraviolet radiation, and the vacuum of space. There's basically nothing that can kill these things, except slugs. Researchers recently discovered that although these tardigrades may be almost invincible, they can't get very far. Their tiny legs don't allow them to migrate far out of their neighborhoods. And so, they frequently crawl onto the backs of snails and ride them like horses to new and exciting places. Snails make the perfect vehicles for these little critters, but their rides frequently turn deadly. A little creature that can survive being shot into space can't seem to survive snail slime. After hitching a ride on a snail, it will cover them in the sticky mucus coating of the snail slime. And once that dries on their tiny bodies, most suffocate. The only way for them to not suffocate in the slime is if they're splashed with water, which helps the mucous membrane fall off and revives the tardigrades to keep on moving. 2. The king GHIDORAH worm. The king GHIDORAH worm is an entirely new species named after Godzilla's arch nemesis. It's a type of branching worm that was recently discovered in Japan and has the unbelievable power to regrow itself. The worm is totally unlike any other organism because it's composed of hundreds of segments spreading across the main body like the branches of a tree. All these segments sprout from a single head. The worm normally lives in the ocean, sheltering in sea sponges to keep warm. Sea sponges are used to help themselves grow. This worm acts like a parasite, attaching itself to the sponge and then allowing its many segments to break apart and branch out, exploring the inside of the sponge as it gets bigger and bigger. It goes inside the canal system of the sponge and then spreads its body parts out, reaching through the pores of the sponge. It's as if a tiny organism entered your body and then sent its disgusting limbs crawling up your blood vessels. 1. Strawberry squid. One of the most bizarre marine creatures that you've probably never heard of was just spotted in 2022. It's called the strawberry squid, and divers found it in the twilight zone off the coast of California. Its approximate location was 2,378 feet, 725 meters deep in Monterey Canyon, in an area where there's so little light that the animals rely on silhouettes to capture their prey. It's a bizarre ocean zone where animals hunt one another's shadows. As for the squid, it's called strawberry because of its bright red pigmentation. It also has photophores, specialized organs that glow in bright spots along its body, making it look like a strawberry covered in seeds. Researchers captured footage of the mysterious squid using a remotely controlled submersible vehicle. And although the photos of the squid make it appear huge, it only grows to be about 5 inches, 13 centimeters. This thing could fit in the palm of your hand, it's just that the underwater photos make it look enormous. Another really interesting fact is that the crimson strawberry color of the squid is not unusual for animals in the twilight zone. The red coloration can't be seen with the naked eye down there and helps animals to appear black. This helps creatures like the strawberry squid stay safe from swordfish, sharks, and hungry dolphins. Would you rather bump into a dangerous squid while at the beach or a giant shark with a mouthful of teeth? Let me know which scares you the most in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon for another amazing video. Thanks for watching.